Okay, good morning. Uh, I hope everybody's in healthy condition due to the fact that uh, we have an announcement from the director of academics of ITB that tells us that you need to keep our healthy condition due to since the number of people who is getting infected by the COVID-19 virus has been increasing in a couple of days, and the increasing number is rise dramatically, and it makes worries to not only for students but also to the lecturer as well. And so I hope that everybody, including myself, is in healthy condition so that we could continue our lecture until the semester end, whatever happens uh, during this time of year. And as I'm going to inform the students in advance, is that next week I think most of the lecturer and faculty members are scheduled for vaccination, for their third vaccination in campus. So there will be chance that some of the classes that already scheduled in the corresponding time would be changed or replaced or maybe canceled for that day. However, in our case, for scientific communication, I think the schedule will be moving on, except that I'm not going to give the lecture from Jatinangor in Monday. I'm going to give it online from Bandung instead, as well as the usual Thursday classes that we usually have in Thursday morning, that we have it in online. And therefore, for those of you who have uh, unnecessary activities that not required for you to enter the campus, it is recommendable for you to stay at home and keep your health condition until the number of cases decreases again, and or at least you got your booster vaccination, so that there will be a not a guarantee, but at least you have that guard, you have that protection against that virus in the next couple of months or so. Okay, so I'm going to show you the announcement that was given about this morning. Okay, this one. Oh, not this morning, but it is yesterday actually. It's written in Indonesian, but I guess everybody's understand about the content of the message here. Let me open it so that everybody knew what precaution that need to be taken. Okay. Okay. For those of you who has or feel illness or not feeling well, it is recommendable for students and also lecturer, work employees, and also the administrator in ITB to work from home. Okay, to work from home or give a leave letter from the doctor, etc. So, and then for those of you who haven't got their second vaccination yet, it is advisable for them to get the second vaccination and also work from home. Okay, and then contact the UPT Layanan Kesehatan for further information regarding vaccination. And then it is also advisable to get booster, which will be held by the UPT Layanan Kesehatan. And then so the letter is directed to the whole Civitas Academica, or the whole member of the ITB, which includes the lecturer, students, administrator, and also the employees. And if there are any family member who are sick and have the potential to transmit their illness, such as coughing, cold, sore throat, etc., and so on, it is requested to work from home. Okay, and also for many of you who are senior year students, even though you have some classes that are required to go to campus, please always keep updated with the condition in campus, or keep communicating with the lecturer, so that whenever the time for you to work from home or to taking the class from home, or setting up an online classes, you are ready and prepared to do so. Okay, and I think all of the classes that are given in physics department are now in the middle of changing. Okay, due to in terms of the situation that is happening in the city of Bandung itself. And so when whatever updates that your lecturer has or your lecturer gave, please obey it, because it's part of our duty to make ourselves healthy, as well as keeping on track with our lecture as well. Okay, so those are the preliminary messages that I'm going to give before we start our lecture. Okay, do we have questions from the students? Okay, if they're not, then I would like to go to the tentative course schedule that we have. We already talked about reviewing the scientific literature, and most of the directions regarding how we review a scientific literature, or how we conduct our literature search, is already given in the given textbook. Or if you are having difficulties in reading the whole passage of the scientific literature review book, which, let me open. Okay, let me show you the book, which is this one. Okay, it's a 200 pages book, and for those of you who have difficulties in keeping up with the content, because it's quite long, even though the messages that is described here will be beneficial for us to conduct the literature review process, I've already gave you some kind of a video lecture that is mentioned, that is listed on EduNext, which more or less the content is similar with the thing that is given in the required book, in the textbook. Although in the video, the ways that they introduce is quite pragmatic. is quite practical, simple, and concise. However, if you need some more explanation, if you need more description on each process that you have, or you need some kind of a distinction between one type of journals and another, then you need to go to the correspondent book. And as I mentioned in Monday's class, I need to show you what type of journals, okay, that are readily available in one database, for example. Because in general, there are three types of scientific publication. First is a scientific article, which basically a result of someone else's research. And then the second one is a review. Okay, it's a review article. And the third one is an express letter, which doesn't need to have a precise conclusion yet, but the discovery or the preliminary result of the research is need to be addressed because of its importance. So instead of just saying the type of references, I'm just going to show you instead. So let me go to the list of papers which I stored somewhere here. No, this is not the one. Oh, maybe this one. Scientific. Is it? Let me see. Why do I? Here it is. Pure science paper. Sorry. Okay. Let me go to the. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to show you, which is related to the literature review process that you need to do as part of your first assignment of this class. Let me show you preview pane. So, okay, so here it is. Okay, so a review article usually have that marker that saying that this is a review article, and by the means of review article, it's basically a compilation of several authors that has experience in the field, of course. So in this case, in AGU publication, American Geophysical Union publications, which the journal name itself is a water resource research. Okay, let me show you water resource research in SIMAGO, because as part of your literature review process, you need to have a credible source. And what we usually do, so what scientists usually do, or what your lecturer usually do, is that they go to SIMAGO, okay, SIMAGO journal and country rank, which they're going to see whether the publication has a certain index or a certain citation number. Q number, or have a I guess it was a citation index, etc. So, which is important in terms of the quality of the journal itself. It has if the number is increased, or the rank is on the top 100 paper, it means that the quality of science that is published in that paper is basically on the top level. So let me see for this example, water resource research. Okay, if you look at it in SIMAGO, okay, we have this one from United States, published by Wally Blackwell. Wally Blackwell itself is the publisher of AGU publications. And here it is, you can see that for water science and technology, it holds its position in as a Q1 or first quartile of the highest level of water science and technology publications. Okay, so since 1999, so it's already it's more than 20 years that this paper, sorry, that this journal have a specific has a tremendous achievement, which holds the Q1 index for 20 years, and also the high index is 217. So if you have higher high index, it means that the quality of the publication is on the top level of scientific publications. So and whenever you're going to look for your own work, such as final project, okay, your final project report, or for your thesis, or for your dissertation, or even for your news article, or for your general or a scientific article for general public, you need to have that credible source to uphold your opinion, to uphold the alarming topic that you want to address, basically. And so if you want to know whether one publication is credible or not, you can go to SIMAGO and look the high index and also the quartile, okay, whether it's in Q1, Q2, or Q3. The top level one is the Q1, and since we can see here that water resource research has that Q1 index since 1999, which is basically the beginning of the SIMAGO indexing era. And let us return to the publication itself. So a review article is basically a compilation, again, a compilation of studies that conduct for some time period. So this author, for example, Andrew Binley, Susan Hubbard, Johan Huisman, Andre Reville, David Robinson, Kamini Singha, and Lee D. Slater are the active scientists that works on hydrogeophysics. And they conduct research on hydrogeophysics for at least 10 years, okay, 10 to 20 years. And so in this review article, they basically compile all of their findings, all of their experience, so that in the future research regarding hydrogeophysics, they have a clear direction on what subject that people need to look upon, because knowledge base or the knowledge library that they gather for 10 years or for 20 years has already gave that, for example, like this one. So there are some kind of agreement or some kind of a experiment that is proven in the field that if you're going to differentiate, if you're going to characterize water content, clay content, and pore water conductivity, then you can do DC resistivity geophysical method, which you can measure electrical conductivity, and from electrical conductivity you will get information about the water content, clay content, and pore water conductivity. So this list on table 1 is based on the based on these experienced author. Okay, so these author gave their insight, their result, and their experience that if you're going to look out for these properties, then you need to conduct these measurements along with these physical properties that may lead to the characterization of these quantities. And then it is also mentioned about the technology and also the computational power that was developed in the last 10 years, so that they knew what kind of improvement that already available at this moment. And so what is typically appear in a review article is that in the last 2 or 3 sections, they will give some kind of an insight on things that need to be developed in the future. So let me, so here, before we talk about the last section, it is given here about the known or what is the state of the art of the application of geophysical method in terms of hydrologic properties, etc., and so on, and how geophysical method is used for characterizing hydrogeological heterogeneity. And then another example given here, if we have a 4D measurements where they have time-lapse measurements for certain hydrogeological process, where they look for the flow of the water, the properties of transport in soil, etc., and so on, and how does it change from time to time, and then how geophysical method is applied for biogeophysics, how bacteria and how organic matter affect geophysical measurement, etc., and so on, how the hydrogeophysics applies on ecosystem science, on environmental science, and how it used to monitor pollution, etc., and so on. And in the last section, or in the last 2 sections, they give about the future direction on how can we draw a hydrogeophysics method for future application. So for example, since in the last 20 years, probably the application is only localized in a small region, it probably needs to expand so that the whole watershed system that important in one area or in one region or in one country, for example, they know on how much the water deposit inside of that country, or how much deposit that groundwater aquifer contained in that region, or in that province, or in that city, etc., and so on. Because water is necessary, is a basic needs for people who live, whether it's in city or in the village or in the mountains, etc., and so on. So it also benefit, and it is also necessary for growing crops, for maintaining health, for our daily life, for cleaning, etc. And so the application for the larger area probably needs to be addressed here. And then how about if we use a autonomous sensing for environmental studies, such as telemetry applications in geophysical measurements, or maybe we could use the chance to develop a drone or UAV to monitor the geophysical changes on that area, for example. And then how about to make bigger data, so that big data analysis and also machine learning or artificial intelligence could be applied there. and many other suggestions that is written here. And as you can see here, the list of papers, since this is a review paper, it involve many other articles that relates to the improvement or to the development of this hydrogeophysical method. So since this is a review article, a review article could also is also exist in another major. So for in another branch of physics, for example, if you look at the American Physical Society APS journal, such as Journal of Physics or Physical Review, etc., and so on, it contains many. It contains articles that basically compile the thing that people look upon for 20 or 10 years. Okay, so it's basically it's not only summarizing, but it's also compiling all of the development and findings on that particular topic in physics. So for example, in optics, in condensed matter physics, in terms of a black hole theory, etc., and so on. So the one that I gave you here, an example of how hydrogeophysical method is applied for understanding subsurface process over multiple scales, which basically conduct by these respected gentlemen and researchers for the last 10 to 20 years. Okay, so this is the first type of a common article that is published in one publication, and the other one is your typical scientific journal. Okay, so for example, sorry. Okay, so here we can see. So the one that I showed you earlier is the review article, and this one is a research article. So this is the second type of an article that is published in scientific journals. So if it's a research article, this means that the content of this literature mostly relates to one particular topic. Okay, to one particular topic, which in this case talks about hydraulic conductivity field characterization from joint inversion of hydraulic heads and self-potential data. And so from here, it only deals with a certain topic or a certain research that want to know about something particular. Okay, so it doesn't cover many things. It doesn't cover the study of hydrogeophysics in general, but this is part of research that conduct in the hydrogeophysics field. So this is just one example for that, which apply the self-potential method to characterize. Let me see. So it's using self-potential data and hydraulic heads data to characterize hydraulic conductivity inside of the subsurface. So this is just one particular example of the study of hydrogeophysics itself. Whereas the previous example, this one, is a review of the whole thing. A review of many publications becomes one article, which this one. Whereas this one is on, it tells the details of one particular topic in hydrogeophysics. So as you can see here, so many details regarding the fundamental theories, the data processing process, and then how the computational code is developed. But it is not necessarily gave the code itself, but it just gave us about the algorithm. Okay, the algorithm on how you write your modeling, inverse modeling and forward modeling scheme. Okay, so here it gave us about the details on how we develop the numerical case study for this type of topic. Okay, so again, in each publication, they will tell us that this one is a research article and this one is a review article. So there are two kinds of, so there are three kinds of article where these two is already mentioned. So the last one, I'm not sure that I don't have, I'm not sure whether I have it in the same publication, but I do remember I have an example of an express publications. Okay, let me see. If I'm not mistaken, there is an express publication. Not this one. Okay, so this is here it is, express letter. So I'm giving you an example of the third kind of scientific articles that you may use for your review. This one is an express letter, which tells us about the current stage of a certain research that need to be addressed quickly. Okay, so for example, now if you went to the chemistry or biology publications, they will have an express letters regarding COVID-19 or regarding the technology that people use for vaccination, because the necessity or because the importance of how we deal with COVID-19 virus, on how we deal with vaccination process, or how we deal with the epidemic itself becomes the most important thing that we need to address at this current time. And so they will give an opportunity for a researcher, for students also, to express or to publish their express letters. It doesn't need to have a solid conclusion yet, but at least it has some kind of a breakthrough that needs to be addressed, need to be told to researchers outside, so that the improvement of vaccination, the improvement of the pandemic studies, the improvement of the understanding on how the virus is evolving, etc., and so on, will be more understandable by telling this preliminary results. So in terms of, so in this example, which I'm showing you here, it is not related to COVID-19, unfortunately. However, it is related to the study of hydrogeophysics itself. So here, let me increase the. Okay, let me increase the resolution. So this type of publication, which is called as express letter, it tells us about the preliminary result that is taken from virtual electrode current injection using seismic focusing and seismoelectric conversion. So this is part of this is a part of hydrogeophysics study that aims to characterize the hydrogeologic properties, or at least it is the electrical conductivity, the density, the seismic velocity, and also the permeability inside of the subsurface using seismic and seismoelectric methods. And so it is. So this is still in the same topic of hydrogeophysics, but since this not involve any measurements, so the topic itself is purely numerical. So so the discussion or the analysis or the description that is mentioned here in the express letter is not going to be too much detail. However, it gave some kind of a conclusion that tells us about the connections, or tells us about there's some kind of a flexibility, or there's some kind of a breakthrough that seismoelectric and seismic could be used jointly to get better result on characterizing the subsurface, okay, even though it doesn't have any actual data from the field, for example. So these are the type of publication that you may have for your purpose, for your research objective, whether it is related to the articles that need to be written for this class, or for your future final project report, for your thesis report, for your work report, for your newspaper article, for your magazine article, etc., and so on. So here, and it is also important because the content, okay, so based on the timing, okay, so based on the timing of when does this article is published, the express letter have that urgency, right? So for example, if we talk about the handling of the pandemic, the handling of, the talk about the evolution of the virus, on how people get vaccinated, etc., and so on, it means that the express letter is the thing that is going to be more up to date with the current condition. Okay, so the express letter tends to be more up to date to the present condition, because it has that necessity, or it has that importance, need to be published, so that people will have better direction in their own research to deal with this pandemic, for example, or in the field of geophysics. It means it will make a breakthrough in terms of the geophysical measurement interpretation. So it makes the interpretation becomes easier, or it becomes more robust to have the result, etc. So it has that importance purpose. And so if you are going to write some kind of article that has that time necessity, that has time importance, or have a, it is like when you are writing an article that topic is on the hot subject in the newspaper, for example. You need an express letter, you need some kind of an article, a scientific article that also up to date with the current information, such as during this pandemic era. So, okay, so if you need that type of source, then it is better for you to have express letter as your main source of your publication, of your article, of your presentation, of your oral or poster presentation. However, if you need some kind of a firm source, if you need some kind of a qualified source for your writing, then the latest subject, or the latest source that you may choose to be incorporated into your article is this one. Okay, because research article published it is published daily. Okay, it is so nowadays a researcher doesn't need to wait for a month to get their paper published. So usually what they have, for example, here in AGU publication, they will accept publication by date. Okay, it doesn't need to. So in the past, what the publishing has, they will wait until some quotas are met, and then they're going to publish the latest edition of their journal on the first week of the month. But nowadays, since scientific publication tends to be online, the acceptance and also the reviewing process is going to be on the day-by-day basis, or on the daily basis, and so the new publication will come out probably in a daily fashion, and it also but it already had that firm conclusion about their own study. Okay, so what difference between express letter like this one and this research article is that the conclusion of express letter, it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be confirmed at that moment, but it gave some kind of a new insight of that study. But the author will tell us that more study need to be conduct to verify what they get from this express letter. So, so the conclusion that is written here is not a firm conclusion. However, for this one, okay, for a research article, they already have a firm conclusion of their study. Okay, and based on the timing, it doesn't necessarily have that importance with the current situation or with the current issues, but it deals with the issues on the one particular issue in more depth, in more rigorous process, in more detailed analysis. And so if you need a firm source for your article, then it's recommendable for you to use this one, okay, to use this type of research article. Okay, and then the third one is obviously the review article, because it makes some kind of a compilation from some period of time, and and then the conclusion on several subjects is already contained here in the article, so that you don't need to, or you, because sometimes in some case you need to go, or you need to find the original author for one particular topic. But now, since we have this review article, you may look only for this one article, and it doesn't necessarily needs to go to the original one. But it also depends on the reviewer. It depends on your advisor, whether you need to write, or your editor maybe, whether you need to write the original author or not. Because if we already have this review article, then we don't need to look on to the original author. So this is also applies when we talk about Newton's law. So for example, when we talk about Newton's law in elementary physics, for example, we don't need to refer to the original publication of Newton's in Principia Mathematica, right? Because Principia Mathematica was written in the 7th century, and many people already use the application of what is written there, so that we don't need to refer to the Principia Mathematica when we talk about mechanics in elementary physics class, for example. We just only need to refer the textbooks, for example. So what review article helps us is that we don't need to look back to the original author. We just go here, we can go here to verify or to use the statement that is correspond to our purpose in the article, or what we need in the article. Okay, and then after this, okay, after this scientific paper publications, the next source that you can have, okay, the next source that you can have for your article is obviously a book. Okay, so it is obviously a book. Okay, for example, if we talk about hydrogeophysics book, then you need to look for hydrogeophysics book, and the content of the book itself might be similar to a compilation of 2 or 3 review articles. So for example, if I'm going to this one, so for example, if I'm going to use well, we already talked about hydrogeophysics. So let us, okay, so for example, this one, hydrogeophysics book from different author. different oh, sorry, not this one. So this is the okay, front matter. Hydrogeophysics written by Singh et al. So oh, sorry, this is the editor. Okay, so Hydrogeophysics edited by Yoram Rubin and then Susan Hubbard. So from here we can see that the thing that is written here in the book is basically so the purpose of a book and also a review article is more or less the same. Okay, it's more or less the same. So a book itself, the content of a book is usually a compilation of studies that is conducted by a certain author. So in this case, Yoram Rubin and Susan Hubbard is the editor of this book. And then let me see the author. And then sometimes the chapter of the book itself could be written by several authors. So for example, here, Susan Hubbard and Yoram Rubin is writing the first chapter, which gave some kind of an introduction to hydrogeophysics. And then chapter 2 is written by James J. Butler. And then chapter 3 is by Jaime Gomez Hernandez. And then the 4th, the 5th, 6th, and the final chapter is written by different authors. And it is pretty, and this is kind of similar, okay? It's kind of similar with a review article. So that a book could be written by a bunch of authors like this one. And then it usually have 1 or 2 names that act as an editor. So, so this type of book is also called as a monograph. Okay, so a monograph or a handbook usually written by a group of authors, which appoint 1 person or 2 as their editor of the book, and then the content itself is basically a compilation from many authors. Okay, it's just like, so the purpose of this monograph book in the field of hydrogeophysics is written by a group of researchers. So it's basically the same with review article. So what are the difference? The difference is that the amount of information that contained in the review article tends to be less than a book, because in book you could put many information regarding the current state of the study of hydrogeophysics itself, the amount, because sometimes in review article they also have a page limitations on article. However, for a book they don't have any limitations on. So as long as the editor from the publications agree with the number of so what we usually have is that you have this editor that deals with the scientific subject and with the scientific content of the submitted paper or the submitted chapter, and they also have editor from Springer as the publisher that tells the author needs to follow a certain template, to follow a certain regulation in terms of the letters, in terms of the outline, in terms of the margins, in terms of the how you produce good quality picture, etc., and so on. So as long as the editor from both sides, the scientist and also the editor from the publisher company agrees with some regulation, then you don't need to have you don't need to follow the regulation on how many pages that you could have, basically. And then and that is all the difference. And I think that is the difference between the review article like this one and a book, is is in terms of the how many pages, etc. and so on. So it does not necessarily means that a book have good quality content in terms of scientific in terms of the scientific knowledge. It doesn't mean that it just is just that there are some type of publication that it is easier to publish, okay, because people in scientific world, or scientists or researcher or lecturer, need a media to publish their work. So they will choose the methods, or they will choose a way which is easier for them to get published, okay. And then writing a book is one of that media that they can choose to deliver their message, basically. Okay. However, if you see in this example, the hydrogeophysics book that is written here, published in 2005. Okay, so the book of hydrogeophysics, which edited by Susan Hubbard and Yoram Rubin, published in 2005, whereas the research article or the review article from Water Resource Research published in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yes, it is published in it is published in 2015. And so, in terms of the timing, in terms of the updates that is contained in review article, tends to be more updated compared to a book. And it is also true that sometimes for example, if we take the Halliday and Resnick book as a example in elementary physics book, the content of the book is if you see the previous edition, okay, if you compare the current edition to the latest edition with the previous one, you can see that most of the descriptions there is a repetition from the previous editions. Okay, so in terms of the updates, sometimes book is not that updated compared to a review article, because after this book is published, for example, the hydrogeophysics book in 2005, there will be subsequent researcher. There will be more experiments that is conducted and getting published after 2005. So the knowledge itself becomes increasing. Okay, the amount of knowledge is become increasing, and then the quality also becomes better and better. So that people needs to probably the original author here needs to write the second edition or the updated version of hydrogeophysics, or maybe they just publish it in a different media, such as here in the HGU publication, for example. Oh, and the other differences between a book and journal publication is that if you have a review article published in a certain publication like this one, it has that credibility that this knowledge is acknowledged. This study is acknowledged by the professional association where your field of study is coming from. So, for example, the emergence of hydrogeophysics for improved understanding of subsurface process over multiple scales is particularly a geophysical subject. Okay, so the AGU as the professional association, as a professional organization that deals with people who works in geophysics or deals with geophysicists throughout the world, not only in the United States, they recognize this importance of hydrogeophysics subject or hydrogeophysics study in terms of characterizing the subsurface material. But for book, okay, in book, they don't have that knowledge. They don't have that acknowledgement that is made from your professional association, for example. But this is only so the a book usually cover a certain topic, and then it is published by a certain publication, but it doesn't need, but it doesn't mean it is granted or recognized by a certain professional association. But if you are publishing the review article, or if you're publishing a book that is granted by the professional association, it means that your field of study is getting recognition from your own professional association. Okay, so that is one of the advantage if you are publishing your book, or if you are publishing your review article associated with a certain professional association, such as AGU, SEG, APS, IOP, etc. And this is one example of a monograph book, a book that is written by several authors, but there are also books that is written by a single author. Okay, a single author or a group of people, but it doesn't produce a different author for each chapter. Okay, so for example, so the one that I gave you here in this example is the hydrogeophysics book, is written by several authors, where author is going to write about chapter 1, different author for chapter 2, different author for chapter 3, chapter 4, 5, etc. However, there are also a book, okay, that the author itself is a sole author. The sole, so for example, here in the self-potential method, it is a book that is written by Andre Revel and Giardani, whereas the whole chapter is written by the two. Okay, so if you look at the content, all of the content here, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, and 5, 6 until the conclusion, or until the appendices, all are written by the same author. So we have two kind of books: a book that is written by a group of authors, and a book that is written by a sole author or by two authors, for example, like this one. So here, in this type of book, the chapters are basically written by themselves. Okay, it is not written by different author as this publication has. Okay, so there are two type of, and this is a typical book. It's a typical scientific book that people usually use as their reference. Even though there are monographs such as this one, where chapters is written by different authors. So so which one is the most important between this one and between a monograph and a normal book? So it depends on the subject. It depends on the things that you need to write. If you think that the information is contained here, then you need to refer to this book. If you don't see any relevance between the thing that you want to write with the content of this book, then you need to look upon another publication or another books that talk about the subject that you want to address. Okay, so it is not, so it doesn't have any level of importance whether a monograph like this one and a normal book like this one, but it's all relates to the thing that you want to write. You need to have that firm basis on the introduction part of your article, so that it will be firm, so that it will be solid, and then you have that direction on the thing that you want to explore more on your research, that you're going to talk about on that one and on that particular article. Okay, and then the last one obviously is your colleague report. So I've shown you a research article, I've shown you books, and then the last references that is eligible for you to write your own article. The last one is the thesis. Okay, it's a thesis dissertation. So from the level of the degree, after books, you may look for student dissertation, and then you may look for student's thesis, and then the last one is the final project, okay, or undergraduate thesis. So let me, okay, let me show you an example. Where did I put that? Okay, here in teaching. Okay, here it is. Drive. Okay, let us do this one. Okay. Okay, so for those of you who, oh, sorry, this is a, sorry, this is not the draft that I'm looking for. Okay, this one. So by the degree of, so by the degree of knowledge that is contained in one literature, in one article, if you are looking for a current, if you're looking for a source that is related to the current studies, or a current issues that need to be addressed in the scientific community, you need to go to express letter. Okay, so that is the, so express letter is basically if you're looking for a quick discoveries that is up to date with the current issues, and you look for the scientific findings that available at the moment, but it doesn't have any conclusion yet. It doesn't have that firm conclusion yet. But if you're looking for discoveries that has firm conclusion, then you need to look for research article. So the first one is the express letter, because express letter, it is written in a concise form. It only written in not more than 6 pages, if I'm not mistaken here. So here from, okay, so it's less than 5 pages. So it's less than 6 pages. So if you need some kind of a quick scientific articles, you may look for express letters, which contain up-to-date issues, but it doesn't have a firm conclusion. And then if you need to look for a more based research result or findings, which has firm conclusion, you may go to the research article. And then after that, you go to review article to get a compilation of one particular studies that is conducted for some period of time. And then after that, you may look for books. Okay, so from research article, you go to books, whether it's a monograph or a handbook, or a normal scientific book that is written by a single or a group of authors. And then the last one, by the degree of importance, is a final project report. Okay, because the thing that is written here, even though it relates probably to your research, because it is supervised by your supervisor, but please be aware that sometimes that is the things that is written here in the final project report is not that firm. Okay, it doesn't have, so when your fellow students write this one, it doesn't have any peer review. Okay, so the difference between this one and the scientific publications in journals, the first three have that scientific referee, which look upon the quality of the writings, which look upon the importance, the degree of importance of that publication, whether whether the findings that you have in this article is going to be a major breakthrough. It gave some kind of a new insight of a certain topic, etc., and so on. However, in this one, in final project thesis or in the final project report, the thing is not that up to date. It doesn't have that novelty. Okay, it doesn't have that novelty compared to the scientific articles. Okay, and therefore, and sometimes your advisor will give you some kind of a repetitive subject between one student to another, so that the references is kind of similar between one topic to another. Okay, and therefore the quality of the science that is written here is not as good, or it is not on the same level with this research article. So if you're going to look for a firmer publication or a firmer source of your introduction, it means that you need to go to the scientific articles or books. Okay. However, I'm introducing you here to the scientific, to the final project report, because this is one of the formal sources of publication that you may use as your own article. Okay, as your article, because after this you cannot take any other publications as your source for literature review. So, for example, if you're using an experiment module or a laboratory practice module as your source, then your source does not have a firm basis on your for your introduction. Okay, so never use experiment modules, never use short note on lecture, never use a web page unless it has some kind of a source from a particular scientific article. So if you're citing, or if you're using a web page that doesn't have a reference to a book, to a research letter, to a research article, or to a review article, or to a thesis or dissertation, then the content of that web page is not eligible. It is advisable for you to not using that type of writings, okay, as your reference, as your list of source for your article. Okay, and therefore, okay, and so if you have the chance to read the or the guide for conducting research literature review, please do so, and then please take care on how you look for scientific articles. Because there are 3 types of scientific article available in one database. So the first one is an express letter, the second one is a research article, and then the third one is a review article. Because the three of this has different purpose, even though it is a scientific article, but the level of the importance is different, etc., and so on. And then after scientific article, you need to refer your writings into a book, whether it's a monograph type of book or a typical book that is written by an author, or by a group of authors. And then the last level of your scientific article source, you may refer to a dissertation, you may refer to a master thesis, you may refer to a final project report like this one. But please remember that the thing that is written here in the final project report, the quality of the knowledge, the quality of the scientific knowledge that is written here is far, far less compared to the research article, okay? Because, you know, sometimes for undergraduate level, the quality of writings, it is not that good compared to the research article, obviously. Okay, so these are an example on how we conduct literature review in terms of what type of literature that we need to look for literature review. And by that, I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is the scientific writing. Okay, so so after we talk about the literature review, we're going to how we write our own articles. Okay, because I'm going to remind everybody here, in February the 14th, okay, in February the 14th, you are requested to send your draft. Okay, so this is your first major assignment that you need to fulfill, is to submit your introduction part of your article. Okay, submit the introduction part of the article. I will give you the templates for this later, but the general scheme or the general rule is that the introduction only, so the maximum number of page, the maximum number of pages for introduction. So so the introduction means here is your title, your name, affiliation, okay, like this one. Let me. Okay, so a typical introduction of your paper should consist of a title, your name, and then affiliations. You don't need to write your abstract. Okay, I just need your introduction that you done as a application of literature review. Okay, and the length of your introduction, maximum length is only 2 pages. Okay, so if you have 1 page, so 2 full pages is the maximum length of your introduction. So each of you need to submit the introduction part of your proposed topic in February the 14th. Okay, so in February the 14th, you need to submit the introduction, which contains the introduction of your scientific topic, the title, your name, affiliations. Okay, without abstract. Okay, you don't need to include the abstract yet in this introduction. Okay, so the maximum number, okay, the maximum page is only 2 pages. Okay, for this introduction, and therefore, since we're going to write your introduction, I will talk about this material that already prepared. Okay, so the next topic is basically how to write title, introduction, body of presentation, and conclusion. The goal of writing an article is to give good presentation. Okay, so to give good article, to give a good explanation on the topic that you select for this class, or if you are dealing with your final project research, it means that you need to give a good presentation and then a good writings or a good article for your final project. Okay, so if we have, so we could take an analogy from cooking. So the ingredients of the food that we cook is basically the materials that we need to have for our articles or our presentation. So the styles, okay, the styles of how we present our article or how we write our article, it's similar with the appliances, with the pan, with the spatula, with the bowls and chopsticks, etc., and so on that we use during cooking. Okay, so the styles is basically not the ingredient, but it relates to the how we cook our foods basically. Whereas the content, okay, whereas the slide content or whereas the article content is basically the ingredients of our article itself. Okay, and then how to write the content is how we prepare it, how we create one paragraph to another, and how we make connection from one paragraph to another, etc., and so on, and then how we change the flow from one section to another, and these are the things that we need to look upon. Okay, and how to present is basically on the experience. Okay, for those of you who haven't got any experiences besides from this class, so if you only have your first experience in talking in front of the audience from the 1-minute presentation, so this class will be your preliminary stage before you actually present yourself in front of a committee for your thesis or for your final project report. Okay, so the quality of presentation or the quality of the paper itself will be increasing by time to time after you have that experience when you write the paper or when you prepare and deliver the presentation itself in front of an audience. But the things that is true, whether it's for presentation and article, is that a strong title orients reader to your area of work. So you need to have focus. You need to have one particular. You need to have that differentiation that will lead people who read your article or who watch your presentation directly know about the thing that you're going to talk about. Okay, so for example here, if you have a general expression such as effect of humidity on the growth of an avalanche, people will think what kind of avalanche, what kind of growth, or what kind of humidity that we're going to talk about here. And so if we add particular explanation, or we have more information on the title, it will direct us to know about what particular topic that we're going to deal with. So instead of writing effect of humidity on the growth of avalanches, it's going to be better if we use effect of humidity on the growth of electron avalanches in electrical gas discharge. So it makes a differentiation that the avalanches here means an electron avalanches, and the setting, it is not avalanches that occurs in the mountains, but avalanches that occurs in electrical gas discharge. So in other words, title should identify your area of work. Okay, another example, studies on the electron deposition of lead on copper. It could be more specific, such as effect of rhodamine B on the electron deposition of lead on copper. So detailed titles separate the present work with others, and often not possible to create in only 3 or 4 details. So it is not that hard to include 3 or 4 details into our title. And then too many details, but however, too many details are difficult to understand. Still, you don't need to have too long titles for your thesis, too long title for your article, or even your presentation. And then we need to balance precision with the conciseness. We need to balance between the precision of the particular topic that we are going to discuss with the conciseness in terms of the how much letter or how much words that we need to have in our title. So in other words, we need to have an eye-catching titles, like as the news article that is present nowadays in the online news journal, in the online news portal. Sometimes they will use some eye-catching letters, or even as some kind of eye-catching words, particular word that grabs people's attention to that article, and sometimes it will make us uncomfortable, or some kind, or the title sometimes will mislead the reader sometimes, or it gave some kind of emotional roller coaster when we look on the title itself. So and it is also true in scientific articles, where the title needs to be eye-catching, but it doesn't need to derail from the scientific purpose itself. So after the title, so we have talked about the title, and so here, if we relate the thing that is written here in the research article, we already talked about the title, okay, and more or less, your name and affiliation should be confirmed at this moment, because you knew where you're coming from, and then you knew your own names, right? And so that the thing that you need to think about is how you create a concise but a one particular type for your title. So after we talk about the title section like this one, we are going to move on to the introduction. Okay, so in the introduction, okay, it is basically a section where you prepare the audience, or where you prepare the readers for the discussion. Okay, so it basically tells us the background story. It basically tells us the latest technology or the latest applications of the topic, or the latest or the state of the art of the studies that you're going to conduct, which gave the necessary background information for the readers and for the audience before they deals in depth in the result and in the methodological or in the conclusion sections. So that here in the introduction part, you need to make sure that your reader has enough background information to appreciate the problem you're studying, and then appreciate the importance of the research that you're doing. Okay, so the motivation of the introduction section is to describe the goals and significance of the research. So it is part when you tell everybody that this research is important, that this report is interesting, and this report needs to be addressed, or we need to tackle the problem based on the information given on the introduction. And so that is the motivation of having a introduction section. And the background is basically provide concisely relevant background materials so that the audience can appreciate the research problem and its motivation. And this include previous related research, relevant theories, and unanswered questions. We can also include figures and diagram liberally to convey our message, but and then hesitate whether we need to include a figure or not. In the example that I've shown you earlier, the first figure only relates to the second section. So in this research article example, the introduction doesn't have any figure, but it doesn't mean that if you need to emphasize something in the introduction, you may include images also. So for example, like this one in the review article, in the introduction, they have this figure that tells us about the hydrogeological construct of one subsurface haze. Okay. So this is a cartoon of terrestrial environment illustrating hydrogeological heterogeneity and how geophysical methods are often used to characterize hidden subsurface. It is located, or it is part. So it is part of the introduction. So in the introduction, you may use figure if you have things that need to be emphasized, that you need to be highlighted or need to be focused on. But if you don't have any, then you write all the paragraph as it is. Okay. So let me go back to the lecture slide. And then after you mention about the motivation of your study, you tell the background information related to your study. And then in the last paragraph of the introduction section, you may preview the conclusion. You may briefly describe the key conclusion and result in the paper. So such as this one, if we compare that notes with this one, so here, okay. So the last paragraph here that is written in this research article is basically telling us about the brief preview of this study conclusion. So here we are interested in developing novel formulation. So it's basically tells us that we are interested in developing new formulation, so novel means new, to infer directly from the joint inversion of self potential and head data of the hydraulic conductivity field of heterogeneous aquifer, etc., and so on. So our goal is to underline the strength and the weakness of the self potential method for determining K fields using the pumping test. So one of the conclusions that is taken from this article is that it underlies the strength and weakness of self potential method for determining K fields using during a pumping test experiment. Okay, so it basically relates to the conclusion, but it doesn't tell us the conclusion as it is, but it's only previewing that the result of the study shows that there is some kind of a relation between SP measurements and pumping tests. Okay, so let us go back to the lecture material. Okay, so the bottom line is you need to put yourself in your audience shoes. So we need to put ourselves in audience or our readers to convey why they should be interested in your research, and don't assume they are already interested or already informed. Okay, okay, let me continue. Okay, the scope of the introduction defines the scope and limitation of the work. So you tell about the scope and limitation also in the introduction. So in this example, the scope of the study is the topic itself is a proposed study on effect of alcohol on life expectancy. So the scope is a 10-year study, and then only men survey. It is not including women, and then it consists of 3 classes of drinkers: non-drinkers, moderate drinkers, and heavy drinkers. And so it's basically telling us the scope and also the limitation of the study. So it doesn't tell us about the effect of alcohol for women, and it doesn't tells the alcoholism from 20 years ago, because it's a 10-year study. Okay, so here so other thing that is not mentioned here, so medical history is not considered, and then other effects such as exercise is also not considered, etc., and so on. Okay, a strong introduction tells audience why the research is important. Okay, so here is an example. This research presents a design for a platinum catalytic igniter in hydrogen air mixture. One danger at a nuclear reactor is the loss of coolant accident. Such an accident can produce large quantities of hydrogen gas, etc., and so on. Our method is to eliminate this danger to intentionally ignite the hydrogen air mixture at concentration below those for any which serious damage might result. Okay, so these are the things that you need to address for the introduction, which you basically not only telling about the motivation, background, and the preview of conclusion, but you also but you also tell the audience about the scope and limitation of your study and the importance, okay, of your study itself. Okay, these are for your first major assignment. Okay, you must obey for this rule, and then the maximum number of introduction for your assignment here that you need to deliver, that you need to submit by February the 14th is only 2 pages. Okay, 2 pages of introduction of particular topic that you choose for this class. Okay, so after we talk about the introduction, we move on to the middle part. Okay, in the middle of a report, you present your work. In the middle of your article, you present your work. In the middle of the middle section of your presentation, your article or your report, you present your work. You choose a logical strategy. You make section and subsections, such as headings, subheadings, to basically outlining the thing that you want to explain on that particular section or in that particular chapters. So keep in mind that for your thesis or for your final project, the sections made of chapters, whereas, so for example, if you look on this example, okay, one section to another is divided by chapter and subchapter. However, for a research article, it consists of sections and subsections. Okay, so at least you have that outline that gave you that tells you the rule or the outline of your article flow. Okay, after you tell the audience about the necessary information to grasp this article, and then you will talk about how is the data is collected, on how the data is processed, and how the data is analyzed, and what you come with the data itself, and what are the conclusions. Okay. Okay, so common strategy for the middle, you may use chronological order or a spatial order. Oh, let me. Okay, or you may use parallel parts, or you may a flow chart. Okay, it is common thing for students to have a flow chart for their research. So you may talk about your part by part of your flow chart as the middle part of your research article or your paper. Okay, section heading should be descriptive and parallel. The one that is given here is non-parallel, non-descriptive, but if it's parallel and descriptive, you have this sections and subsections. Okay, dividing a section into a subsection, all pieces should be on the same pie. It means that if you talk about, sometimes, okay, sometimes, the suggestion is that if you have your one subsection written in 2 pages, then the other one is also needs to be written in 2 pages, so that it has the same size and the same amount of information that is contained on one subsection to another. However, it is not necessarily true, because if you look for this example, one subsection has longer. Okay, so for example, this one, subsection 4.4, case study 3, it only consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of a paragraph, whereas subsection 5, okay, 4.5 has longer lines. Okay, so sometimes there are explanations that needs to be addressed in one subsection. That will make the amount of information in one subsection is longer or more compared to the other one. So if you are not able to make its subsection content similar, then it's okay. Okay, because in the example that I showed you earlier from a published article, the the number of lines that contain in one subsection could be different from another. But this is just a suggestion for an ideal article. Okay. The hierarchy of headings of subheadings should be written like this one. Okay, and then the main part of presentation or the main part of your article is basically the result and discussion. Okay, the purpose of this section is to present and discuss your findings, then to analyze your result and compare to previous results or models. The important elements that you need to address is the summary of result, describe the key result obtained with accompanying figures and graph of raw result, and then analyze data. If there is any converted data obtained from analysis of the raw data, make sure to describe what conversion procedure was used. And then you talk about the relevant details, highlighting for the readers any noteworthy observation. Okay. And then the next one, the detailed analysis. So you analyze your result with appropriate level of details. If you analyze your data in terms of particular model or phenomena, provide background and detailed mechanism. And then you test your hypothesis. If your results agree or differ with particular hypothesis, provide an explanation of the relevant hypothesis and explain in details why you believe your result agree or disagree with this model. So in the bottom line is that for your result and discussion, put yourself in your audience shoes, convey all the logical steps that went into the analysis of your data and into the conclusion you've drawn from that data. Okay, and the endings, okay, such as the conclusion and or the summary. In the strong ending, summary of result and future perspective, the goal of this section is to re-emphasize the most significant result and conclusions associated with your research. So the elements are summarize, provide closure, make recommendation, and be clear and concise. Okay, two approaches for summary. You can make a descriptive summary, or you may use informative summary. The descriptions on the differences between descriptive and informative, you may look upon this example. And then after conclusion, you may add acknowledgement. So let me show you here. After conclusion, usually author will give some kind of acknowledgement on the last part of their. Okay, here it is. So here conclusion is section 6, and then they have acknowledgement over here, which basically tells the reader that this research cannot be happen if we don't have funds or we don't have support from this people or institutions. So we thank to these people who gave us grant, who gave us support, who gave us the facility to test our samples, etc., and so on. So make sure you have acknowledgement on your article, because failing to cite the contribution of others can be a fatal flaw for your career, such as this one in terms of the DNA studies by James Watson, which did not acknowledge what Rosalind Franklin's work at the time, or even in HIV virus study in the 80s. Okay, to conclude, choose a good informative title, identify area of work separate from the other work, and then introduction prepares audience for discussion. Defines the scope and limitation of work, tell audience why the research is important. And for middle body presentation, choose a logical strategy, make section and subsection. And the ending gives summary of result and closure of the discussion and future perspective, and refer and cite the contribution of others. Okay, I think that's all for today's lecture. Before Monday, we're going to continue with the, let me see. Oh, I have already turned off the sharing screen. So let me share it again from another, okay, from the timetable. So after we talk about the standard for scientific paper, etc. and so on. In Monday, we're going to talk about how we present numerical data, how we construct scientific figures, writing a research paper, etc. and so on, so that by Thursday next week, you're going to start working with your introduction, okay? Because the hardest part of this class, of the assignments of this class, is basically to start writing, to start designing, etc. and so on. So I'll give you time for you to start writing your introduction. And then the introduction part itself needs to be submitted by February the 14th. Okay, I guess that's all for today's class. Thank you all for your attention. We're going to meet again on Monday for the next topic of the class. Okay, let me stop the recording.